All right, today we're pulling a really fascinating file from the Shadow Cabinet archives. This is a Gothic noir parable, and it's not just a story about some person, it's about a fundamental choice, a choice that pretty much defines the limits of our existence. Okay, so this one image, this is the key to the whole thing. Imagine it. Every single one of us is a performer walking this tightrope, balanced over this massive, endless void of what could be. And this isn't just some poetic metaphor. The archives are pretty clear that this is the fundamental human condition.
And on this tightrope, there's this perpetual struggle playing out. The archives call it a battle between two basic archetypes of the soul. Really, two completely different ways of facing that abyss down below.
So let's break down these two paths. On one side, you've got the overman. Think of this as the architect of the self, someone who's totally fueled by the spirit of becoming. They find freedom in this triumphant declaration, I will. They embrace what's called amor fati, a passionate love for their own fate, good and bad, and they use the logic of the crucible to literally forge their own destiny out of risk and chaos. Then, you've got the other side, the last man. He's all about the polished floor, the safety of a gilded cage. He's totally bound by the heavy weight of thou shalt, the rules. He's terrified of the messy, unpredictable parts of the soul, and in the end, he just gives in to the logic of zero, a safe, calculated, but ultimately passionless way to live.
And you have to understand, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. It is a choice that is forced on every single person who walks that tightrope. It really boils down to this: the painful, transformative fire of creating something new, or the cold, comfortable, but stagnant quiet of the grave.
And this is where the central figure of our parable enters the picture. A man named Salvio Pallido. The archives call him the high priest of the polished floor. I mean, what a title, right? He's the perfect avatar for the whole philosophy of the last man.
Pallido's grand project was just pure hubris. He actually promised to eliminate chance itself. He wanted to build a world where every single gear turned perfectly, a world where the unpredictable, chaotic parts of the human soul were just engineered out of the system entirely. A perfect, gilded cage.
And this is where you see the central, fatal flaw in his whole way of thinking: the Pharisees' paradox. Pallido truly believed that if you just ignored the abyss, if you polished a silver mirror so shiny that it only reflected the stagnant ceiling of your own arrogance, that the void would just, cease to exist. He actually thought he could lower the tightrope to the floor and have the nerve to call it courage.
But here's the thing. Every system, no matter how perfectly you design it, has a ghost. Every machine has its gremlin. And Pallido's system, well, it was no different. His cold logic completely failed to account for a variable he never saw coming.
And this disruptive force, it wasn't born from some ancient forest or whispered myth. No, this ghost was forged in the high-stress furnaces of human trauma, right at the bleeding edge of technological progress.
The archives call it the Gremlin spirit. Now, this was first documented by RAF pilots way back in 1929. These gremlins were their way of personifying mechanical failure. They were the imp in the engine, that unquantifiable variable that just laughs in the face of cold, hard logic. It was, in a way, the human soul fighting back against the machine.
You see, the gremlin wasn't just a saboteur. It actually served a vital purpose. It was a psychological shield. By blaming some mischievous sprite for a stalled engine, a pilot could avoid that crushing shame of making a mistake. It externalized the failure, right? It turned this terrifying, indifferent void of physics into a personal duel of wits. The gremlin became a coded signal that the system, and the human inside it, had reached its absolute limit.
And so, this Gremlin spirit, the very ghost of chaos that Pallido was so obsessed with erasing, well, it became the catalyst for a catastrophe he could never, ever have predicted. Pallido's rigid logic of zero had absolutely no room for this kind of wild, unpredictable energy. His perfect system was brittle, it couldn't bend, and so that perfect silver mirror he had polished so carefully, it began to show fractures. The Gremlin spirit forced a reckoning. It brought the terrifying reality of the abyss, all that unowned chaos Pallido had tried so desperately to hide, crashing right back into his gilded cage. And just like that, the cage shattered. The entire illusion of absolute safety, of mathematical certainty, it all collapsed into 1,000 jagged shards, revealing the infinite void that had been lurking just beneath the polished floor the entire time. But something new, something terrible, emerged from the wreckage of Salvio Pallido's ambition.
A truly horrific transformation, born from the price you pay for seeking stagnation instead of growth.
He became the emerald phantasm of atavism. He wasn't a man anymore. He was a ghost, haunting the wings of modernity. A living, breathing signal of systemic failure. He is the embodiment of atavism, which is a return to these ancient primal hungers, and he's the ultimate symbol of spiritual entropy, of a soul just winding down into nothing.
So, what the Phantasm really represents is what the archives call the tragedy of the unowned. It's the story of valuing accumulation, hoarding safety and certainty over the difficult, painful process of becoming something more. It's a walking mockery of the last man's hubris, a soul so haunted by unintended consequences that it has been completely replaced by a destructive, empty cycle of just comparing itself to others.
Which brings us to the end of our parable, and to the crucial lesson that the Shadow Cabinet decided to preserve from all this wreckage.
You see, the Phantasm wasn't destroyed. It was archived. It's now kept as a forensic artifact, a chilling and absolutely necessary warning to any and all who dare to walk that tightrope between order and chaos.
This whole story is what's called an uncanny hook. It's a warning that resonates so powerfully today, doesn't it, in our age of AI and constantly accelerating technology. It's here to remind us that our most marvelous inventions, our most perfect systems, will forever be haunted by the ghosts of our own limitations, and by the specter of unintended consequences.
This parable from the archives doesn't offer you an easy answer. It just illuminates the tightrope that we are all on. The impossible, it seems, is a formula that holds the power for both breathtaking creation and utter destruction. So the question remains, for you, and for all of us, will you learn to fly with your ghosts, or will you perish in the cold, stagnant earth of a world you tried to make too safe?